Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. My name's Cara, and today we're going to go through the news for the week, main headlines, stuff like that. So we're going to kick off with news about Kane. So Kane's been missing for a little while. We haven't seen him on TV for some time. It turns out he's been given time off from the company to focus on his latest campaign for mayor, which is quite interesting. He's campaigning to be mayor of Notts County, and he is also running his own insurance company, which does car, home, motorcycle, life insurance, and boat insurance. Anything you need. Ironically, does funerals, which is quite funny. We also happen to have in Manchester, just down the road from me, a funeral place called Kane's Funerals. Guy gets about. There's talk about there potentially being more leaks of other wrestlers. So we know about the leaked sex tape of Paige. Paige had a sex tape leaked of hers, obviously with Xavier Woods. Huge news. But it looks like there are others that are coming out. So we've got Maria Kanellis, potentially Summer Rae. There's rumours of Caitlyn being next, former WWE wrestler, women's wrestler Caitlyn, and Big E. Now, the New Day are potentially being kept off TV until WrestleMania, because obviously they don't want the crowds to get too creative with their chants. We've already heard how creative can go over CM Punk and the things that they've come up with for others, such as the Walrus for Paul Heyman, amongst others, and obviously there's been a lot worse. So they've kind of just, playing it safe. It's like there was a video for the New Day on their YouTube, the backstage segment that they did on the latest Raw. The reason why it was backstage, again, don't want the crowds to get too creative during the segments. They disabled the comments on it so that people can't, comment, shall we say. Yeah, hopefully they won't do that at Mania and try and hijack the show. I think they're just going to let bygones be bygones and just kind of let the sleeping dogs lie, because to be fair, the WWE Universe has really stood by the wrestlers who were involved in the scandal, and they haven't made too many jokes or been too nasty, so hopefully it'll just kind of blow over relatively quickly, kind of like the Seth Rollins one. The Seth Rollins one obviously being a little bit more scandalous because obviously it's involved an up-and-coming NXT developmental wrestler. Something a bit unusual has happened lately as well. Jim Cornette has been announced as being the one to induct the Rock and Roll Express into the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, as some of us may know, Jim Cornette has had some issues with WWE at the moment over time. He's been quite loudmouthed, shall we say. He's not one to keep quiet about things that piss him off, and yeah, it's quite weird that they're letting him do that. So it's certainly going to be an interesting Hall of Fame, so it might be worth tuning in just to see if Jim Cornette kind of goes off on one. Maybe that's why they invited him, maybe it's the controversy, but it should be quite funny. If not, he may have finally built his bridges with the WWE, and it's going to be nice to see them on talking terms again. News about Shinsuke. Obviously, there was talk about him potentially moving up to the main roster. I would imagine that is still soon, when they're being in talks for what he would get put on, whether it would be SmackDown, whether it would be Raw. Obviously, Triple H wanting him on SmackDown, but it looks as though he will be still with NXT by the time Download rolls along, as though he's not on the poster, which you have to admit is weird considering he's one of their main draws. He is on the he has been announced for Download, so it looks like he won't be moving to the roster just yet. The ratings have really dropped for, in other news, the ratings have really dropped for Raw. SmackDown's managed to maintain, in fact it's managed to go up by 0.27 million, but Raw has really dropped, dropping to 300,000 by the third hour. So the first hour was 3.16 million, the second hour was 3.12 million, and the third hour was 2.87 million. They lost so many. This is the lowest rating for Raw since during a non-football season, because obviously when the NFL is playing, then you kind of expect the ratings to slump. But this is the lowest rating since 1997, which is insane when you think about it. Raw, though, has been continually average or poor. It hasn't been the greatest. SmackDown has been continually good. It's been consistent. It's been better. But then again, look who's in control of it. Look who's got more control over it. Just like it was with NXT, you've got Triple H in control of that, and Triple H obviously has proven that he knows what he's doing when it comes to being able to produce quality television. He needs to have his way with it, and maybe Vince needs to let Triple H have a little bit more control, especially when it comes to Raw. Let the creator create. A bit more WrestleMania 33 news has come out. So, Goldberg and Lesnar are now no longer scheduled to be the main event. It looks like that's not going to be replaced by Taker versus Reigns. This is probably a better option. Maybe not the best option, considering I would say that Taker versus Reigns should not be the main event. It should be an attraction, as should Goldberg and Lesnar, but I think the main events should be your main titles. Your ultimate goal, the thing that everyone's going for in the company. Yes, I understand that it's the legends having a fight, but that's more for feature, that's more for attraction. It's not representative of your company as such. Yes, it's going to get more of the outside fans in, but at the end of the day, again, you want your titles to look strong. Why do they keep doing this? They keep making the titles look weak. But anyway, yeah, so Goldberg's contract ends at WrestleMania. There was on the leaked card talk of it being Goldberg's retirement match, I would imagine, with him also saying that this gives his family one last time to see him as a superhero and gives them a chance to see him as the superhero who he was. Maybe not exactly who he was, but, to see him in the role that's made him who he is, it's probably going to be his last match, and it's been good. It's been good to see him back, but I still think that him winning the Universal title was just a step too far. I would have liked to have seen title versus title for the US and the Universal. Get a bit more recognition there for Kevin Owens as well. Angle is still scheduled to return for the post-Raw after Mania, but there is now talk of him being on the SmackDown as well. So this opens up a question. Will he still be become the new Raw GM, as has been rumoured for the last few weeks? Now, Foley is scheduled not to return after he recovers from hip surgery, which explains why we got the send-off that we got for him on Raw, which I still have to say was a beautiful segment. So very touching and a nice farewell to Foley. We'll see you down the road, mate. Yeah, with him being on the post-SmackDown, with Angle being on the post-SmackDown as well, I don't know what that says for him potentially being on Raw. Also with the fact that when he was backstage last time, he was backstage at SmackDown Live, not at Raw. So maybe he's still going to be GM. That might be the story that they've got for him. They might have something where he talks to maybe Daniel Bryan is the GM from SmackDown. We have a little bit of a chat. Or maybe he's not even going to be it. But he is rumoured that he is mentioned on a YouTube video recently uploaded by WWE, talking about the top 5 people or top 5 wrestlers to replace Mick Foley as GM. So it's still open. It's still very much open for him to become GM, but it's not a guaranteed. A little bit of news is that Shawn Michaels was offered the dream match. As some of us may know, there was a photoshopped poster of AJ facing Shawn Michaels on a doctored Royal Rumble poster at the beginning of this year. AJ posted it. It obviously seemed like something he would really, really love to do, but Shawn Michaels wasn't offered it, but then he was offered the match, and he turned it down. Shawn Michaels wants to stay retired, and I get that, but Shawn Michaels versus AJ Styles, you know you want to see that match. We all wanted to see that match. So, but as much as it guts me that didn't happen, at the same time, I completely respect Michaels for actually staying retired rather than doing the whole Flair thing where he retired and then suddenly came back. Maybe he's learnt from that. Maybe he saw what Flair did and decided against going down that route. But we still get to see him every time WrestleMania rolls around, so we still get to say hi. So it's not like he's retired but not forgotten. So there's been a big leak of news about a kind of a rush of news about and rumours and all sorts about the women's match recently. Now, obviously they've said it's for all available women on the SmackDown roster. Now, I'm guessing that means that maybe some women are getting moved. Considering who's been mentioned, I'm guessing some women are getting moved to SmackDown, or we've got some women wrestlers who are coming back who are just going to automatically be classed as SmackDown, or they're just going to be returning and being classed as part of SmackDown for that night. It's kind of weird because, right, first initial talks are about Summer Rae and Emma potentially coming back and making their in-ring return. Now, Emma has already kind of debuted on Raw as Emmalina, and then she might be just randomly turning up for the SmackDown thing as part of that, which, considering how many women they have on Raw at the moment, I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to randomly just stick loads more women on SmackDown and then barely have anybody on Raw. But you could also say that it might be worth moving the women's division over to SmackDown. But the problem with moving the women's division over to SmackDown is that SmackDown has less time. So because SmackDown has less time, unless you were to make it 3 hours so you could put the women in or potentially give the women their own show, kind of like what they've done with 205 Live and the Cruiserweights, you may run out of time to have them featured. So it might end up being it may not end up being worth it in the end. It might just end up being a waste of time to do that. But yeah, Summer Rae and Emma. Summer Rae we see in bits here or there. I think the last thing we saw her do kind of Raw related was the story she had where she was kind of dating Rusev and she had an affair with Dolph Ziggler. Weird soap opera crap, don't know why. Again, poor booking, poor Ziggler. But so they're rumoured to potentially be part of this. We also got Tamina. Now Tamina makes sense. Tamina, the last time we saw her was recently she made her in-ring return recently at a WrestleMania? At a wrestling live event. Can't remember where, but it was for a SmackDown live event. At the same SmackDown live event, Asuka made her main roster debut made her main roster debut on that show. So that could be maybe her teasing a moment for that. Same with Tamina. Maybe they're just teasing it. Maybe they will bring them back as part of this whole women's thing. There's also talks about Eva Marie being part of it, but Eva Marie declared that she had retired from wrestling not that long after the whole scandal of her being suspended. Now, maybe she did retire, maybe it was just her taking some time out. Maybe she's kind of been forgotten, but it's possible that she may turn up. She might have been asked. It'd be weird if she turned up and then suddenly won it after doing no wrestling. The last person to turn up randomly wins it, but how pissed would the audience be? Then again, the fans are going to probably be pissed anyways because they don't seem to be happy about a part-timer winning the championship, a part-timer holding it, a part-timer being in it. These are your legends. Stop complaining. You can't expect them to wrestle all the time. At the end of the day, they've got lives outside of there, and also they've been wrestling for years. Give them a break. So yeah, other names that are rumoured to be potentially part of this is that women from the past have been contacted for a spot at WrestleMania. Now, this could be just a backstage segment thing, which could be just some bit where they go in the middle of the ring and do something like HBK, the Stone Cold and Foley did last year. But they could also be potentially part of this match. The rumoured names are Maria Kanellis, Tara, aka Victoria, Lita, and Kelly. Naomi may also potentially return during this, but we're pretty sure that she will be. She's got an injury similar to Rollins, torn ACL or MCL. Her father tweeted that she'll be back by WrestleMania, but even though he did still delete that tweet that he put out in response to a fan, he still, obviously, it was still there. So more than likely, she'll be back. So we know that she will pretty much definitely be in there, potentially even winning that title. Hopefully she will be the one who wins that title. She deserves to get it back. She's a great athlete. She's good in ring, fantastic entrance. So yeah, she's worthy of getting that back. Obviously, we'll also have Mickie James in that match as well, as you could class as a returning women's wrestler. But yeah, Lita has been spotted doing some working a match on the indie circuit, so maybe she's preparing to get in ring shape again. Maybe that's why she disappeared off the panels, even though she said she was leaving the company. She may still be on good terms with the company and just doing something just for WrestleMania. Like she revealed the women's title, replacing the Divas title. Victoria did leave to go and do her own business. So I suppose it gets her a bit of cash in, so she might still do it. Kelly has been probably the heaviest rumour about coming back to WrestleMania. So she's pretty much a definite. And Maria Kanellis has recently left TNA. Maybe if she does turn up, maybe she'll bring Mike Bennett, the Miracle, with her. That would be fantastic for him to turn up in the Battle Royale as well. Because obviously we've got a few people who've left TNA recently. The next one I'm going to talk about, which is the Hardys' return to WrestleMania. Now, this has got all sorts of convoluted. Okay, so WWE have officially offered the Hardys a contract. That is confirmed. They have also passed their physicals to wrestle in ring. So obviously, all signs point to an inevitable return, and apparently it is a matter of when, not if. But they are still locked in a legal battle with TNA over the broken gimmick. So the talk is not about whether they turn up, not necessarily before WrestleMania, or at least sometime very soon after WrestleMania, but will they be bringing the broken gimmick with them? Obviously, the last time we saw them with the broken gimmick, they won the tag team titles in Ring of Honor. There was talk about them potentially returning at the Royal Rumble, both the Hardys, but they didn't, and they ended up signing with Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is only been said though to be a short-term deal. Now they have a match. The Hardys have a match with the Bucks of Youth for the Ring of Honor tag team titles at Supercard of Honor on the 1st of April, the night before WrestleMania, which makes them available for obviously the next night. Should they drop the titles, it makes it more likely that they will turn up there. But they really do want to use the broken gimmick. TNA said that they created the broken gimmick, obviously Jeremy Borash being potentially part of that creation. But then you've got the Hardys saying that they created it because obviously TNA gave the Hardys full creative control over their characters. So if they had full creative control, then arguably the intellectual property rights belong to the Hardys. But you could argue that part of it wasn't, so maybe they would have to drop maybe the Senor Benjamin and Vanguard 1, as that was reportedly created by Borash. Fair enough. But let them use the broken gimmick. If it was their creation, intellectual property rights matter, and they have the rights to this, and they will be able to fight it. So there's arguably no reason why we shouldn't see them bring the broken gimmick with them. But until this legal battle is done, it may be sometime before we see it. But maybe they will. Maybe they will return with that. We'll just have to see if they can get this legal stuff over with before WrestleMania night. Or at least before the Raw after Mania. We'll just have to see how it goes. Reby Sky and Senor Benjamin haven't been offered the contracts anyway, so that kind of takes them out of it. Bit of a shame that Reby's not been offered it, considering we don't have that many women in there at the moment, and the guys and the girls kind of need a bit of growth. I think it would be a good thing if they let Reby Sky in there, added a new dynamic to it. I personally would love to see, on a side note, I would personally love to see Rosemary in there because she's proper twisted, and to see her maybe work with like the Wyatts or something would just be awesome. But anyway, so yeah, now this there's a bit of an argument again, kind of going over social media between the Hardys and TNA. As we know, it's recently reached a thing where it's kind of spread a little bit onto YouTube. TNA have started putting trademark after everything broken when it comes to stuff on the YouTube channel, whereas Matt has started doing it next to anything that's broken or deletion or anything like broken related on his Twitter. But again, like, we'll just have to see how if they manage to settle this potentially out of court. There's no reason why it shouldn't be able to be settled out of court, and the cease and desist letters will hopefully cease and desist. The other thing is that WWE themselves have teased the Hardys coming over with they obviously when it comes up to WrestleMania, they tend to share videos of things that have happened at previous WrestleManias, normally as a little bit of a teaser for what may happen at WrestleMania. One of those recently being WrestleMania, a clip from WrestleMania 25 of Jeff jumping through the two tables onto Matt Hardy. So obviously, you know, that is a big hint. So hopefully we will see them at WrestleMania, and if you do, you know that we will all freak out. Me especially, as you can probably tell. Okay, so as I mentioned, Lesnar and Goldberg is no longer the main event, but as we also know, Lesnar is more than likely going to be walking away with the Universal title. Now the WrestleMania 34 main event has been leaked, as we know, and the WrestleMania 34 main event will be Lesnar versus Reigns for the Universal title. React how you will. I can see how it's all going to lead up to this and how it's been. But Lesnar's been built up for years, and that was kind of the plan, to have him built up for years since WrestleMania 31. After obviously Seth cashing the title. In fact, before then, so that Reigns could become the new face of the company. It was spoken about Reigns becoming face of the company a long, long time ago. Quite not that long, even after the Shield dismantled. But, so Lesnar could potentially hold that title for a full year. But it's not the most likeliest scenario. This entire feud could go on for a full year. This is basically this is the year almost planned out already. It looks like what's rumoured so far is that Lesnar will likely win the title at WrestleMania, which is basically inevitable. He'll lose it at somewhere close to SummerSlam to either Strowman or Reigns, which is kind of cool because it'd be nice to see Strowman. It explains why Strowman's been built up to be so much of a monster, and Reigns will end up taking the title, or Reigns will end up taking the title, and we could potentially get a rematch against Lesnar at Mania. But it does explain, like I say, why Strowman has been built up to look so much of a beast, so almost undefeatable, and why they're also building him up against Reigns. Because maybe they'll make it a triple threat. Maybe they'll do Strowman versus Reigns versus Lesnar. Maybe they'll do Lesnar versus Strowman for post Mania, which explains the feud that would be in place while Reigns potentially went over to SmackDown after the draft. Because the draft is meant to take place round about May. So if it takes place in May, then obviously it's only going to be a month or so until Reigns potentially moves over. If Reigns moves over, then obviously we may have AJ get moved over to Raw as well. But it fills a gap where Reigns used to be, with the Lesnar and Strowman storyline just being there and kind of keeping it in the fore until Roman returns onto Raw, or until they maybe do something. Maybe they'll set it up at Survivor Series, because Survivor Series tends to be where we start hitting on the road to WrestleMania. We start revving the engines. And maybe that'll be where, we get this story rocking and rolling with Reigns versus Lesnar, because obviously that's where the two brands will cross over, or with one of the main ones where the brands will cross over just in time for, like I say, for the beginning of WrestleMania season. Also, with Brock being retired from UFC, we will probably see him for a lot longer than we did before, because obviously he's got a bit more spare time. He'll probably still be part-time, but he probably won't be as part-time as he has been the last few years. News about the WrestleMania 33 stage development. As we know, the stage is normally set up to be something different each and every year. Last year it was kind of WrestleMania 30 was kind of a Mardi Gras thing because it was in New Orleans. And then you had WrestleMania 31, which was set up for the Terminator stage and outside. And then we had WrestleMania 32, which was kind of WrestleMania 32. Nothing special happened there. And Roman Reigns didn't win the title. Move along. But this year is rumoured to be a roller coaster. Pictures of the scaffolding and stuff have been released, and people are saying it could be an actual roller coaster, or whether it will be just kind of built into the set, or whether it will be an actual roller coaster kind of surrounding WrestleMania. Will be the actual WrestleMania main, kind of ring. Will be quite interesting to see how they work it into that. It is classed as the ultimate thrill ride, so it makes sense for it to be a roller coaster, but it's WWE certainly know how to put on a show, so it's going to be really cool to see how they work that into it, and whether it will actually end up potentially becoming a part of the show. There's quite big news come out recently. There's a war starting between WWE and Impact Wrestling. I still call it TNA. It's just me, but it is officially Impact, as TNA has dropped TNA from its name. So it's Impact Wrestling. But yeah, the war seems to have intensified between the indie circuit and the Hollywood of wrestling. The WWE is in talks to buy Ring of Honor, potentially actually buy it out outright, similar to what they tried to do when they tried to buy out Impact Wrestling when it was going bankrupt and it was having all the issues. They've done this before, as we know, with WCW. Now, this has been going on and off since August 2016. Now, Ring of Honor bosses found out that this had been leaked about, obviously, them trying to buy it, and they've told the guys, but they've told their talent that WWE is apparently only after the tape library, as was said about when they tried to buy out TNA. It's not a case that they necessarily want the company; they want that tape library. The reason why they want that tape library is because a lot of their talent has come from there. Obviously, with what I like to call kind of the TNA era at the moment, with NXT, you've got Bobby Roode in there. You had Austin Aries, who's now on the main roster. Samoa Joe, again, who's now on the main roster. AJ Styles, need I say more? We had the Dudleys come back as well a year or so ago. Young Insanity. There's loads that are coming out of it. Obviously, and then you got Ring of Honor as well, where you've got Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens. Let me see. Oh, we briefly had James Storm as well when it came to the TNA ones as well. Not for long, no, but it's a shame because I really would have loved to have seen Bay Money on NXT. Imagine Bay Money on NXT, people would go mental. Or Bay Money on SmackDown. I can dream. So yeah, but Ring of Honor, obviously, I say Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, who was Tyler Black, aka why his wrestling academy is called Black and Brave Wrestling. We have Samoa Joe, who didn't just come from TNA. He did feature in Ring of Honor before then, as did Austin Aries. So yeah, obviously, you know, with a lot of their talent coming from there, and then you've got the bits with now the Hardys being on both of those as well, and you've got there's quite a few that have come from there. But WWE has slowly started to take over as they've started to get more partnerships in place, as Impact has announced recently that they have as well. Now, WWE are in partnerships with Evolve Wrestling, which is, as some of us may know, Will Ospreay was offered a contract to go there by Paul Heyman during Paul Heyman's an audience with, and that was because of his connection to Evolve Wrestling. They have a partnership with Progress Wrestling in the UK and ICW, and now potentially Ring of Honor. TNA have currently announced that they have a partnership with AAA, which is where Tigre Uno comes from. Tigre Uno being former X Division champion, not sure, former X Division champion anyway. And now the World of Sports UK show, which obviously got the New Year's special edition and is now being announced as having its own full series. They also have connections to The Crash, Pro Wrestling Noah. Oh, also going back to AAA, that's also where Del Rio was formerly working. Oh, sorry, not Del Rio. Formerly Del Rio, Alberto El Patron. He's obviously come over to TNA now, and he was at AAA for a little while after the whole WWE incident. They did at one point work with Wrestle One in the Japanese ones, which is the promotion run by the Great Muta, formerly WWE. So they're starting to slowly take over the independent circuit. This is the question though. If Impact Wrestling's viewers continue to go down, even though they have started to kind of pick up, especially now they may potentially getting back on Spike TV to get back into at least in the UK anyway, rather than obviously they lost their slot on Challenge. If the viewership goes down again and they end up in somewhat of the same kind of mess as they were, will Impact just become GFW and completely change to a different one? Will Jarrett just try rebranding again? Or will WWE buy them out? If WWE buys out Impact with those partnerships still in place, then WWE could potentially own almost all of the independent circuit. Isn't that just a little bit of a scary thought? They took over the territories and now they may take over the independent circuit. Couple of little last bits that I'll leave you on. Just wanted to say a quick condolences to JR and the loss of his wife after a car accident. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. On a slightly lighter note, there was quite a sweet moment at a live event in on WWE at Montreal, where Sami Zayn ended up doing a shoot promo in the middle of the ring to the crowd, and referenced about his feud with Kevin Owens over the years. Kevin Owens being stood on the ramp at this point. They just had a match, obviously, them both being from Canada. They decided to use them. And this was really, really sweet. Talks about how they've brought it all over the world and how far they've come. And obviously, again, that's for the person who was in Ring of Honor was Sami Zayn as well as El Generico. And yeah, so Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens talked about like where they've come from and what they've come to, and obviously being in their home nation, and just the way he did it was really touching. And then you cut to Owens on the ramp, and Owens is actually tearing up, and it looks like he's about to start crying, or is crying because he actually starts wiping his face, and yeah. He just kind of says one line and then walks off. But it was really sweet to see him basically break character, because he's very much kayfabe Kevin Owens. He tries to maintain the heel persona in and out of the ring, and when he did that, you saw him as himself, and you saw how much their friendship still matters to both of them, and it was incredibly sweet. I don't think there ever really will be a last time between those two. I'm going to put a link to that in the description below. I'm also going to put a link to this whole war between WWE and Impact. It's described much better on the Wrestle Talk website, on the Wrestle Talk YouTube page. Give them a follow, give them a subscribe, give them a like. Also, don't forget, like, share, subscribe to this channel as well. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. All the links are going to be in the description below. Cheers for your time, guys, and I'll see you down the road.